So natural gas, currently we're looking at the August contract I have up here.
Oh, look at that. That's moving too.
We are trading at 282. We were down to about 280.5 this morning. And so let me clear out this crude oil. So we get the EIA natural gas numbers at 10:30. It's about 10:20 right now Eastern time. Jumping into the natural gas spreads. And so what we take a look at, right, is setting up a bullish and a bearish spread. Now, yes, on the 11 AMs, I'm just going to jump to real quick. We're going to get to use 280 as our point, so we're going to have to pay a little bit of premium to the, intrinsic value to the bullish side. Yeah. Now, let's just see where, before we jump around the noons, yeah, they're going to have a similar price point, and even, I'm guessing, the 230s. Okay. Because
they're all 280s. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
all 280s, because natural gas, all things considered, hasn't had too big of a move to move away from where they probably set those strike prices. So all these trades, if you're trading both sides of them, are going to have a bit of a bullish bias to understand how they work, because you're paying for the intrinsic value. This spread has value between 280 and 3. 20 cents, right? It's going to be $200 total because it's ticking in basically 1/10 of a penny. And so yes, buying this, it's going to cost us about 22. Now, about 19 of that is going to be intrinsic value, right?
Okay, yep.
And then on the bearish side, this is going to be basically a completely out of the money spread, because we're about almost a full 2 pennies out of the money, and that one's going to cost you about 7. So the 11 AMs, you'll be paying about $29, or like 2.9 pennies, call it yep, 3 pennies, away from 280 in either direction. Right, you start to gain value. So not bad, considering especially that's where if you have a bullish bias, right, you only need to make up the $7 that it cost you really to buy the bearish spread, plus yes, a little premium to the bullish side. So jumping over to the noons, just to see how they price a little bit differently for that extra hour. Would have our bullish spread on the right, 280 to 3. That one's costing us about 24, as opposed to, I think the 11s were like 22, and still about 7, because this is so far out of the money. And, you know, it's not so far, as in we were just almost approaching it this morning, but 2 pennies in one direction is a pretty decent move that's going to be an out of the money position. And let's just see how the 230s line up. So we had, about 31.
31, yeah, it's 29 and 31. 29, 11, 31 noon.
And what does change on the 230s now is that if you ever got a real big move, you have from 280 till 320. So they're 40 cent.
You got both happening, yeah.
40-cent spreads, and that's
time and spread, right?
Time and yes, and the size of that spread, right? And what's going to happen though is that you're not going to really pay much extra premium for that extra 20 cents because it's so unlikely. But it's nice to have if you don't have to pay for it.
Right.
And so that's going to cost you about 34.
That's pretty good. That's real good, actually.
Not bad, and especially, I would say, if you're a little bit bullish, because, you know, you might want volatility, but you really don't want 2 cents of volatility to the downside, right? Because that's where you come in at 280, which becomes our max loss right at this point. Yes. So if you're looking maybe for a move, potentially in bullish direction, that trade sets up nicely. But the other side of that is, maybe if you're just looking for the bearish spread, this is where really, you know, you're a little bit out of the money, you're 2 pennies out of the money, but you're selling it at 279.3, and you're putting up $7. And if you ever got a huge move, you have exposure down to 240, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Seriously, man.
Yeah.
And what's going to be intriguing here, not that just because oil got a big move yesterday doesn't mean gas is, because gas seems to be in a different consolidation, but you know what? Energy is energy, man.
Hey,
so it's going to be
these directional trades too. I mean, that seems like a little bit outlandish, right? The risk reward. But man, I'm sure there was some great opportunities in the daily spreads yesterday to the bearish side, which it's not a bad trade when oil's at $74, $75, and we've already seen it oscillating maybe to the downside for those bears out there coming into the inventory number at 1030. I'm sure there were some people that benefited off of that with a $4 move to the downside.
That is, we haven't, I don't know what the stat is, but I think it's the biggest move in a year or two.
I mean, $4 in 4 hours.
Right.
Just big time. Welcome back, folks. Tommy O'Brien with Tom O'Brien. We got the Dow up almost 200 points, S&P's up 18, and we have natural gas with a little bit of volatility. And I'm jumping over to your chart, Tom. There we go. So I see stockpiles rising 51 billion cubic feet for the week, natural gas. And expectation, there we go. So median estimate was a rise of 54, so pretty close in line. Nothing like the surprise that we saw yesterday with oil. But to jump back to the chart, the initial reaction is downward, that's for sure. These are 5-minute bars. This red bar is the beginning of that news coming in, and we're trading just above 282 coming into that number, Tom, and we spiked down to below 281. So a penny of movement real quick, but market kind of calibrating, trying to find its spot where it should rest.
Yeah, look at that, man. And you know, what does happen with these volatility trades, folks, the bottom line is that we're starting with the 280 point, so you want it away from the 280 as much as you can.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, when it's 2 pennies above, I like to say it takes on a little bit of a bullish bias because, you know, it's not a straight volatility trade because if you get 2 pennies of movement to the downside, you've now reached your max loss. So it does take on a little bit of a different trade. And that's where maybe, you know, why we pointed out, maybe if you're bearish, you always just could have had, and to pull it up, there's your bearish spread that you'd still need. You know, you're still almost 2 pennies out of the money, but you could have until 230 on those. See how the market moves.
Totally.
And to check back in one last time for the hour on natural gas, right about 280. So we've had about 2 pennies in negative action, Tom. If we were taking both sides of that trade, though, 280 would kind of be your max loss there. You know, you maybe if you'd stretch things out till noon Eastern or 2:30, and you'd have some exposure. And again, that bearish side is just flirting with some value if you had a 230. So pretty interesting, but kind of not quite what you'd be hoping for just quite yet on those volatility trades.
And, you know, the natural gas, you know, as we said a little bit earlier, the spread hasn't been big. We've been in the same place really
Yeah, the
for 6
trading
months.
spread you're talking about isn't, right.
So, the World Poker.
Yeah, World Series of Poker. We'll do some updating there. So you got the main event final table reached last night, and they start playing that down tonight. There's no more wait for months. And
Really?
the big story that you'll see in there is they have a former champion, Joe Cada, featured here. So he has made the final table. He won it in 2009, I believe. And you're talking about fields of so 69,400 when he won it in 2009, and there's 7,800 this year. So if he could ever pull off those two, that would be quite the feat. But either way, and they're all guaranteed $1 million already making the final 9.
That's how that works. Wow.
Yeah, and then it goes up from there to 8.8 million. And then the other story kind of coming out of there, they have other events going on. Phil Hellmuth won his 15th career bracelet in a $5,000 basically turbo. So they have events still going on, and Phil Hellmuth, he's won the most bracelets ever, and he closed it out last night, won another one. Pretty cool.
So that's pretty wild because I saw that, you know, he's a mouthy guy, right? And
yeah, I'm not a fan of him as a person. You can't knock him for his poker playing, though. That's for sure. Pretty cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
Stay right there, folks. We got swim lessons coming up next. And I'm at Basil Chapman, Steve Rhodes, Dave White. We'll be back this afternoon. Tommy, have a great one and a safe one.
You too. Thanks, man.
Thanks, folks.